the other teachers. Good job. Let's pick up where we left off. And then by the end of the hour, you will have in your hands paper number 4. We've already done this. The attempt by the U.S. to get out of the Depression, first by giving people jobs, then by helping out businesses, banks, and farms. And then we started this. We talked about permanent reform, things that apparently are still around today, and bank insurance so that you put your money back into banks. Now they have money to lend. Social Security, although we kind of pointed out that it's withering and dying, but it's still around. And let's just identify a few more things here. So do you remember what the Dawes Act was? The Dawes Act?
Didn't it like put Indians in Oklahoma or somewhere?
No. Correct. No, there are no Indians. There are no Indians. Now, what we differentiated by saying, you know, the Germans did the same thing, there are no Jews, and then they went and executed that plan. The difference with the Dawes Act was they didn't kill Native Americans, but what they simply said was, you're not a people anymore, right? Join the winning team. You're now white. Welcome. So no more tribes. This is the law that said, yeah, we effed up big time. Sorry. This is the law that recreated all those tribes. If you believed that you were a tribe, you would go to the federal government and apply for recognition. And then the federal government would grant you land. And you're seeing the fruits of it today. You have 6 or 7 recognized tribes in Minnesota and about 7 or 8 recognized tribes in Wisconsin, and those people are dual citizens. They are citizens of the U.S. and they are also citizens of their own tribal lands, and they get to make laws, and that's why gambling is legal, because those tribes have legalized it. And smoking is legal, even though it's illegal in Wisconsin. It's legal on Native American lands. Any questions? Smoking, lighting a cigarette.
That's illegal.
It's illegal in public areas in Wisconsin.
Oh,
You can't smoke in a restaurant.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like outside, like a parking lot. I was like,
Well, go ahead, but not at Miller Park. You can't. Any sort of private business, no smoking. It's about 10 years old now. Sure, there's smoking areas. Okay, just a couple other things here to note. Hey, look, TVA again. It's in all 3. It gave people jobs. It made businesses move there to save them, and it's still around today. It is a permanent structure. It's still around. And the TVA continues to provide cheap energy to businesses that move to the Tennessee area, and it's a government-owned thing. So in a way, it's socialism. But no one has really criticized it as socialist because they like it so much. They think it's okay. So let's not be socialist in any other area, but the TVA is pretty good. We skipped a couple buttons here. Questions? Raka. I want to give you time to digest the paper number 4. I'm not trying to scare you. So let's go over 3 slides and then let's move on. What's a demagogue?
Isn't that the thing from Stranger Things?
No. What is a demagogue?
It's a Democrat.
Yeah, and I said no to that already. That's what I said. Okay. Let's go over 4 examples here. So these are people that viewed FDR and his New Deal, Relief, Recovery, and Reform, as bad. And so they voiced their opinion, which you are free to do in America. One of the real challenges of living in America is that if you have an idea, I guarantee someone is going to hate it. And then they'll voice it, right? Trump's our president. About a third of Americans cannot stand the guy. About a third say he walks on water, and about a third say football. And that's always true, right? Generally, there's a good rule in life. If you're ever the boss, a third of your employees will hate you, a third will love you, you can do no wrong, and a third will be football or whatever. This guy's a critic. He does not like FDR. He does not like FDR's ideas. His name is Father Charles Coughlin. He's a Catholic priest. And he hated Jews. That's what anti-Semitic means. He had a radio program. Again, one of the challenges of living in a free society is the nutcases can have a radio program. And people listen to this guy. And he loved Hitler. And he got to voice his opinion. And people listened to him. Yes, dear.
Why is it called anti-Semitic? You don't like Jews?
The Semites are a group of people that were Jews. It's no, they were Jews, right? It's kind of like America and United States. Well, what's the difference? Well, really, there isn't much difference. There is a little difference, as you should know. Same thing. The Semites are a group of people. They're also called Jews. Okay? He believed that FDR was a communist, right? I mean, let's go back and look at these programs. Would you generally agree that this involves an increase of government? Would you generally agree this is pretty liberal? That's what this guy said. My God, he's a communist. He wants the government to take over everything. And so bad. FDR, he thinks FDR is way too far to the left. Left meaning liberal. Left, liberal. Okay. And then let's meet this guy. His name is Huey Long. He is from Nolens. And he says, we need to take America's wealth, 100% of America's wealth, and distribute it to 100% of America's people. Take 100% of the wealth and distribute it to 100% of the people. Does anyone know what that sounds like? That is communism, right? So this guy says, nah, FDR isn't doing enough. This guy's saying he's doing way too much. This guy's saying, no, he isn't. He isn't doing enough. He should have more government involvement. Like, for example, let me just go back here a second. Don't insure the banks. Take over the banks. Right? Have government run banks. I'll give you some synthesis. Bernie is running for the Democratic nomination, and he is running on an idea of government-run healthcare. Don't back up the healthcare program, which is in essence what the government does today. Government doesn't run hospitals, but the government does back up the hospitals with various insurance programs like Obamacare, but the government doesn't run the hospitals. And that's exactly what Bernie wants. He wants government-run hospitals. And I'm not here to tell you that's a great idea or a terrible idea. I'm just saying that he wants more government involvement. Well, that's what this guy wanted. He wants government to run things. Okay. So we got somebody saying FDR is doing way too much, and another guy saying he's not doing nearly enough. Let's meet this guy. He's Dr. Francis Townsend. And look at his idea. It says he has an idea, a form of social security. It's kind of an interesting idea. Every month, the government would give everybody over 60 years old $200. And at the end of the month, if you didn't spend it, you'd have to give it back. And then the next day, they'd give you $200. What is that telling you to do with your $200? Spend it. Spend it. Spend it or lose it. And that would increase demand because these old people are buying things. And then that would stimulate the economy and get her going. Okay? Would you call that liberal? Would you call that conservative? Yeah, it's liberal. It's government getting you to do things. It's government controlling your behavior. Can anyone else come up with an example? Right now, how does the government get you to behave? Give me an example. Go ahead.
They tax the heck out of cigarettes.
Very good. They heavily tax cigarettes. That's an example of a sin tax. You can smoke, but it's going to cost you. Anybody else? Any other way that government gets you to behave a certain way? Any of you drive here this morning?
Yeah.
Did you go about 80? Maybe 90? Oh, you didn't? Why not? Well, the speed limit.
There's a car.
Okay, there's another thing, right? If you disobey the law, stick. You know, carrot stick. Bunny is here. How do I get Bunny from here to here?
Yeah, but there's only
Stick.
cops in town.
Fine. Or here, Bunny. Carrot, Bunny. Okay, so government does both. As an example of a carrot, many of you have parents who are right now filling out their tax returns, And if they own a house, they can deduct the mortgage of their house. That's a way of government saying, please buy a house. If you buy a house, we'll give you a lot of money back. Someday you'll own a house, and hopefully that'll still be true. Government wants people to own houses. Studies have shown that if you own a house, you're more vested in the community. You'll probably not commit crimes. You'll be more involved in the goodness of the community. So the government wants that to happen. So they okay. Obviously, this didn't happen, but he advocated more government. And then finally, the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled several of his ideas unconstitutional. And I've got two examples here. The National Recovery Act and the AAA, the Agricultural Adjustment Act. Where does it say in the Constitution that you can pay farmers not to farm? Yeah, okay, but I'm simply telling you that we had a slightly more conservative Supreme Court who said you can't do these things. You can't do these things. Because where does it say you can? And so here, look, we have King FDR rewriting the Constitution with the word cancel. So he's canceling the Constitution and doing whatever he wants, probably with good intentions. There are people that are critics of Trump today, but I don't think anyone believes Trump wants to destroy the country. Now, there are people that believe that's what he's doing, but I don't think anyone believes he's intentionally doing it. They just think he's misguided. And then there are others that think, no, he's saving the country. Great, whatever you think is wonderful. I would argue the same thing was going on when FDR was president. That there are people who think, my God, with good intentions, you're trying to save the country, but you're destroying the country by creating, in essence, government-run everything. And that's not what the U.S. is about. Go ahead. Agricultural Adjustment Administration. We looked at it a few days ago. It's where the government paid farmers not to farm all their land. So it would decrease supply, which would increase price, and they'd end up making more money. But where does it say you can do that? Of course, it doesn't say you can't do that exactly either. I get that. But we had a Supreme Court that interpreted the Constitution the way Jefferson would have interpreted the Constitution. Remember the old Jefferson-Hamilton thing? Here it is again. All right. Last slide. FDR did not like the Supreme Court declaring his ideas unconstitutional. There were 9 Supreme Court justices. And so FDR came up with an idea. It was called packing the Supreme Court. You see here's FDR, and here there are 5 dummies, and it's called packed court. And they're all saying, yes, 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 we all vote yes. And it's because FDR came up with an idea. He wanted to increase the number of Supreme Court justices from 9 and add 5 more. He wanted to add 5 more. Okay, that would take it from 9 to math 14. He wanted to increase the Supreme Court from 9 to 14. Now, who names people to the Supreme Court? Who says, I want this person to be on the Supreme Court? President does. Wouldn't it logically make sense that if it went from 9 to 14, and if he got to pick the people that were on the Supreme Court, that he would pick people that believed that what he was doing was perfectly acceptable? Doesn't that make sense? Okay. This plan did not work because people were saying you're in the executive branch, and what you're trying to do is manipulate the judicial branch. You're violating the separation of powers that's supposed to exist. And so this did not happen. However, I will say this, for some reason, after FDR threatened to do this, the court suddenly said, what you're doing is great. I don't know why, but they suddenly said, Social Security, great idea. Hey, let's pay men and women equally. Let's have government enforce that. Again, I don't think anyone in this room would say, women, they shouldn't get paid equal. But should government force that to happen, or should we just kind of say, businesses, we hope you can pull your head out of your butt and recognize that people deserve equal pay no matter what their gender is. This is a perfect question to ask, those of you out here in this classroom, and, are you conservative or do you consider yourself more liberal? The liberals in here would say government should force businesses to pay men and women equally. That is a proper role of government. The conservatives in here would say, well, I agree that men and women should be paid fairly, but I don't think government should force businesses to do that. If there's a business out there that pays women less than men, then you women should find another job. Go to another business. That's an idiot business. You shouldn't work for them. The business will figure it out or they'll go out of business. No need for government. Now, what's right? And I'm not here to tell you one's right or one's wrong. One is simply a liberal approach and one is a conservative approach. They both want equal pay. It's how do you get there? Should government be involved? Or another example I've used in here, right? Should there be seatbelts? I don't think anyone in here would argue seatbelts are dumb. But should government force companies to have seatbelts? The liberals in here would say, absolutely, you should require seatbelts in all cars. The conservatives would say, no, let car companies be dumb enough to make cars without seatbelts. People will buy those cars, get in little accidents, die. The herd will be thinned, and eventually you'll breed out the dummies who buy cars without seatbelts. And you'll end up in the same place, right? What's the right answer? Okay, the end. Any questions? Very good. All right, I will certainly want to give you a chance to brace yourselves, so I'll chat with you in about 3 minutes, and we'll talk about paper number 4. Jinx, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, you cannot talk! Finally! She was like a deer there, too. She was like looking like, I don't know what's happening. Don't say her name. Don't say her name, anyone. All day.
Why?
She can't talk. No, she can't. Okay, she can talk, but by rules of this game, she can't.
If you say Jinx, you owe me a soda.
What kind of game do you guys play? We played when I was young where if you talk, we punch you. Until we say your name 3 times. And it can be anyone. Anyone can say your name.
Really, Catherine?
Wait, can I talk now?
What does SSA mean?
5 times. Punch her 5.
That was not hard.
What does SSA mean?
Social Security Act. The law that created Social Security was upheld as perfectly acceptable. Right? It doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution that government can set up Social Security, but for whatever reason, the court decided it was okay after FDR came up with this little idea.
About if we're justified in
This is paper number 4.
How many paragraphs is there?
It depends.
Oh, I'll write that in.
Do you suppose that you'll figure it out?
Yeah, tell me right now.
Yes.
It's our last paper, right?
This is a 6 paragraph.
All 5.
Oh, yes.
Now, remember, Lindy also has his hands on these. So when I say 6 paragraphs, I also said your previous paper was 6 paragraphs. And some of you wrote a lot more than 6 paragraphs.
There was other people from schools that said that their last paper was like 5 paragraphs.
Yeah.
That was ours. Dude.
Well, they don't have a partnership with the AP Lang connection. Look, you'll thank me in 5 years when you write kick butt papers in college. Okay. Are we all back? I don't want to do this.
What?
I love group.
Yeah, we were. That's why we were smart.
he was standing on the floor just in a slightly weird way. And I was like, I gotta get a picture of it. I am mindful of the fact that I am now giving you this piece of paper with a front and a back. Meanwhile, you are also preparing for Blue Book essay number 5, which basically argues whether or not the U.S. was justified in dropping the bombs against Japan. And you're on your own for that. I certainly invite you to use class time when I'm done to partner up with someone and maybe attack a document or two, but I'm not leading that little battle. No cheat sheet, and you get 1 class period to write that bad boy. Okay, so it's really, I mean, I wish he were here to hear me this. You cannot write an intro that goes on for pages and pages, and you can't. You don't have time. Hook quick, be efficient, get the point across, move on. Make your argument and move on. I mean, still accomplishing the goals, you got to provide evidence and document evidence and historical evidence and stuff like that. But don't be linguistically endless. Move on. You got an hour to write a 4-paragraph essay. Meanwhile, this. Okay? It's titled The Big Question. It seems fair for me to try, let's just see. Do you know what 3 questions we try and answer in this class? What are the 3 big questions? Okay, don't look at the sheet.
Liberator or oppressor?
But liberal or conservative? America in the world. There it is. Every unit we look at 3 questions. Is America a good place or is it a bad place? That's dumbed down, but I mean, are we the nation that freed the slaves or are we the nation that made those slaves in the first place? And of course we're both, but where's the preponderance of evidence? Are we the nation that gave women the right to vote or are we the nation that denied them the right to vote until we gave them the right to vote? And of course we're both, but where's the preponderance of evidence? Should government do all these things? I mean, this unit we're looking in right now is an excellent one for should America be liberal or more conservative? We're talking about it today. And then how does America fit in the world? Is the world a better place because America leads it? Or are we America the empire? Are we the mother spider who's sucking other nations dry? I want to suck your blood for our benefit, but not their benefit. You know, the America should influence the world argument would go, we liberated Europe, World War II. The world's not better off because of America would say we controlled the Philippines even though it went against their will, right? And of course, both are true, but where is it more true? Okay, well, which one of those questions interests you the most? Which one of those? Okay, because that's what this paper is about. So it says here, step 1, choose one of the following themes we've been looking at. Are we good or bad? That's number 1. Or is the liberal or conservative approach better served America? Or is America better off by cutting itself off from international affairs or involving itself in international affairs? And actually, number 3 could also be phrased / the world. Is America / the world better off? Because it might be good for us, but bad for the world. Okay, so pick one of those. I mean, you don't have to do it now, but eventually, obviously, you'll need to pick. Step 2, finding historical and document evidence. This sounds familiar, right? Number 1, you need to find historical evidence from 4 of the 6 time periods studied. By the end of this class, we will have gone through 6 units. We're in the middle of Unit 5 right now. We have done this by the end of the year 6 times. There they are. There are the 6 units. I hope this looks familiar. The first unit was about how the colonies declared independence eventually, right? That was chapters 1 through 8. And then unit 2 was the whole Hamilton-Jefferson thing. Remember that lovely essay that you all had to write? And then unit 3 was basically the Civil War. Unit 4 was us industrializing and creating that empire. We are in the middle of Unit 5 right now, which will take us right up through the end of World War II. And then the next unit will be from basically the Cold War to right up to Trump. Okay. You pick 4. Pick 4 of those units. Here's a paragraph, here's a paragraph, here's a paragraph, and here's a paragraph. Can you start to see what it's going to look like? Right? Your question, let's just say you want to answer number 2. Should the liberal or conservative approach be the better way to go? Well, you're going to find evidence from the first time period you choose, and the second time period you choose, and the third time period you choose, and fourth time period you choose. Hello? Hi. Awesome. That'd be great. Let's do it. You bet. Sounds good. Do it. I'm good for it. I'll see you soon. Sounds good. Bye. We're fixing my van. Van. Okay. So far, you're with me right through number 1, right? You're going to pick a question, and then you're going to pick 4 time periods that you'll try to answer that question with document evidence, historical evidence. Okay. Number 2, the evidence you will argue both sides. The evidence you find will argue both sides. This is no different than any of your Blue Book essays. You will find 2 pieces of historical and document evidence for side A, and 2 pieces of historical and document evidence for the 4 eras listed above, right? If your question is liberal or conservative, you will find 2 examples, document evidence and historical evidence, that prove that the liberal approach is the better approach, and 2 from the conservative is the better approach from 4 different units. And then you'll support one and refute the other. Just like all your other Blue Book essays. Okay? None of this should be like where you're looking like, I don't know what to do. It's the same thing you've been doing since September. Okay? Reading on here. These 4 pieces of historical and document evidence must be from 4 different eras listed above. Okay? So far, so good. Number 3, in addition, you need to find 2 more pieces of historical evidence for the side you agree with. These pieces of evidence will be used by you to refute the argument you disagree with, right? Okay, let me pause there. None of what I'm about to say should sound shocking to you. So you have to write your intro, and then your second and third paragraph will, let's just say you believe conservative. That's how you go. Well, then your second and third paragraph will be those people who believe liberal is the better way to go. And so you're going to find a piece of documented historical evidence from time period number 1, which you will prove and then refute. So that second paragraph needs 2 pieces of historical evidence. One that supports the liberal approach, and then you saying, however, that's not true because look at this other piece of historical evidence from the same time period. From the same time. Each paragraph is a specific time period. Okay, third paragraph, same thing. You will go to another time period, find a piece of document evidence, that's a quote, and then a piece of historical evidence, which seems to support the idea that the liberal approach is the better way to go, and then you'll refute it with a piece of conservative evidence that says, however, that's wrong because look at this. Paragraph 4 will be from the third time period, document evidence, historical evidence supporting the conservative view. Fourth body paragraph will be 4th time period, document evidence, historical evidence proving the conservative point of view. Doesn't that seem reasonable? Okay, good. Thank you, Laura. You're my favorite. Okay, I'm on step 3 unless there are any questions. Go ahead.
So in terms of the structure, each paragraph is going to be one of the 4 time periods here.
Correct.
And then, so like our refutation paragraphs are in a different time period then? or,
Each of these is its own time period.
okay, so, okay,
Each of these is its own time period. This paragraph and this paragraph will have two pieces of historical evidence, one supporting and one refuting the conclusion of the side you disagree with. Liberal or conservative.
okay,
Okay. We'll go on now.
all right,
I'm going to read on.
go ahead.
Okay. It says step 3 is write your paper. It's a 6-paragraph paper. Look, I tell you what to do in each paragraph. Maybe this will help you, Ridley. Look, I tell you exactly what to do in each paragraph. What? Let's worry about the. Okay, so there it is. First paragraph, you have your intro. At minimum, ask your question. You can certainly be more creative. And in bold, I put, have you learned nothing in this class? I don't want you to answer that question. I'm just saying, come on, this is it. This is your last chance. Be creative here. Letter B, roadmap. Should be at least 4 sentences, 1 sentence per era you are exploring. And then, of course, your thesis is where you answer the question. And this is you making an argument. This is you for the first time saying, that's wrong and this is right. Okay. Second paragraph and the third paragraph are identical, basically. Second paragraph, argument number 1 for the side you disagree with. Letter A, you make your claim that identifies the argument and the era. Then you have your quote. Then you have his historical evidence that seems to prove that the argument has some validity, which you then render judgment on, and you say this is important because, and then you refute it with a second piece of evidence. Provide historical evidence which demonstrates the non-validity of this argument. Analysis of this evidence is needed. You do the same thing in the third paragraph. It's from another time period. Now I'm going to flip it over. The fourth and the fifth paragraph are identical as far as structure. The fourth paragraph, which is number 5 there, the fourth paragraph will be the first argument for the side you agree with, but it will be from your third time period. And this only needs one piece of historical evidence, right? You're going to make a claim, you're going to have some quote, and you're going to prove it with some piece of historical evidence. And you're going to say, see what this shows. Let me just get through all 8, and then I'll get the answer. And fifth paragraph, same thing. This will be your fourth time period. And then it says here, 6th paragraph is your conclusion. You need to provide some contextualization. And I say here, well, the whole paper is contextualization. That's what you're doing. You're looking over the entirety of the class. You're picking 4 time periods. So this is a contextualization paper. And so I have little fear that you'll knock this one out of the park. You are writing about a big idea here. Put it all in perspective. The paper is you arguing what American history is really all about. Make sure you restate your thesis. Did you create some sort of hook in the first paragraph that you need to finish here? Do so. Make this the single greatest piece of writing you've ever done. It's a small request. Okay. Number 8, it says you're submitting me document evidence you found. Do ... You'll notice that I'm creating due dates for steps that are necessary. By a certain date, you need to show me the 4 quotes you're going to use. Now, this will be worth 0 points. So right now, what I'm afraid is happening in many of your heads is, oh, then I won't do it. No, not the whole paper. That thing. Document evidence you found. I'm going to make it due by a certain date. And I haven't even, to be honest, I haven't really thought about due dates. But if you don't do it, you're not gonna get a 0 on this assignment. This is not assigned. I just think it's a good idea. But you're big boys and girls. You know how you operate. I'm not. Now, will Lindy? Maybe. But I'm not going to. Okay? And then by a certain date, you need to find the 6 pieces of historical evidence you're going to use. And again, that'll be worth no points. But again, maybe Lindy will make it worth points. The whole paper will be due before the class ends. Right? So that'll be early May. Question?
So no synthesis then?
This paper is designed to automatically have synthesis.
Okay.
I mean, it's covering American history, so you will be synthesizing automatically.
Okay, and then contextualization, are we already doing that automatically?
You're doing it throughout the paper. Yep,
Do we use the documents that have already been given, like for the other papers?
it's a good idea. I think that's an excellent idea. Hey, someone usually says about now, hey, can we quote from our book? Great idea. Why wouldn't you? You know, that book that you were,
The book that read all 782 pages so
I'm
far.
comfortable either way.
Why do you know how many
There's
pages?
no-
Don't
Don't do that to yourself.
No,
It's also very easy to find quotes on your own. I mean, it's easy.
I don't know
So the
Really up
document
to you.
is-
I don't know what I'm looking
Both.
I never checked them
Yeah.
out, so they can't say that
I am comfortable if you paraphrase. Lindy, with the last paper, said you could paraphrase instead of quote, and I'm fine with that. But just make sure you still footnote. Just because you paraphrase, that doesn't mean you don't have to footnote. Yeah, you do. You still have to footnote. Okay? Now, I realize that right now, some of you want to cry, and some of you are questioning decisions you've made at the end of last year about why you're here and all that. I do have a B option and a C option here. So take a look at B option. What I mean is letter grade. If you do fourth quarter paper grade B option, you start at 90%. If you wrote a paper so good Shakespeare would weep with joy, you get 90%. If you do the B option. If you do the, see here, B option. And it says answer one of the 3 big questions of the class. The difference between option A and option B is this. For the B option, you only need to find evidence from 2 of the 6 units. You're still writing a 6-paragraph paper, but you only need to look at 2 eras rather than 4 eras. Okay? Everything else remains essentially the same. I even have a C option. If you do this one, the best grade you can get is 80%. If you wrote it perfectly, 80%, okay? And it says answer one of the 3 big questions. The difference here, for the C option, you only need to find evidence from 1 of the 6 units studied. The second difference, it only needs to be 4 paragraphs. And I have here different strategies. You could do strategy 1, intro, first reason why the answer to your big question is yes. The third paragraph is the second reason why your big question answer is yes or no. And then conclusion, or strategy 2 is where you intro and then you argue for the side you disagree with, which you need to disprove, and then the side you agree with, and then conclusion. Let me just share a couple of the thoughts here. You could easily choose option C and get an A in the course. I would, seriously, if there are those people in this room right now, you not only have an A, you have a high A. I mean, you're at the 98, 99%. A 16 on this paper is not going, there is no A plus in this class. A plus does not exist. There's no difference between a 98% and a 93%. It's an A. So don't, and I will not think any less of you if you write this paper. You'll still get an A in the class. You won't get an A on this paper. I'm assuming you write a good paper. So I'm giving you permission to think about that. And then I would also argue, if you just don't like these papers, well, no, you should do it. But this is a way of coming to a compromise. You don't have to go through the blood, sweat, and tears, and you're still getting most of the credit, assuming you write a good paper. Yes.
If I'm at a 96% in the class and I do option C, where does my grade go?
I don't know.
Calculate it.
How?
It depends on how you do, doesn't it?
I guess, but
I mean, let's say you do it perfectly, so you got a 16. I think you'll be fine.
It's not gonna drop your grade 3%, like 20 points. It's not out of 20 points.
Correct.
Oh, it's definitely.
It's not just one. This is just like all the other papers and just like all the other music essays.
yeah.
Okay. I want you to digest this. There's nothing else. You got about 10 minutes. You want to sit there and stare at the wall, be my guest. I also invite you to consider that you still have this blue book essay that you should be thinking about.
No idea.
Decide if there was or wasn't.
I have the next 2 months.
I
The
don't.
American Nation is pretty.
You can come in here whenever you want.
Really?
Maybe not mods,
There's a liberal conservative approach better than certain American.
not mods,
Is there-
6 and 7.
As much as
I won't be.
to just be like, I'm just gonna do this. I don't know if I can physically force
Oh my God.
myself.
You don't like.
Like, take paperwork and hand it in.
Yeah, I don't know.